Transactionally, that presents its own challenges and problems too.
Nobody's really their own boss. Everybody answers to someone.
Right. A number of universities, I think there's 3 of them now, have created a join to the university is a retirement home.
Welcome to Montana Whiskey, Wealth, and Freedom.
Well, I've been in love, I've been on the ground, I've gotten back on my feet, just to fall back down on my knees for you and your whiskey under the bridge.
Welcome back to the Whiskey, Wealth, and Freedom Show. We are discussing in this show, the topic for the show is strategic redundancy, and the title of this episode is You Don't Own What You Think You Own. So the opening reframe, just from the previous episode, we kicked off the concept of strategic redundancy. That's assuming that you actually control what you think you own.
Before we get into this, if you're about building control in your financial life, not just participating in it, make sure you're subscribed.
All right, so we're going to do a quick intro recap. And again, once again, I came up with another question as part of the quick intros. I'm going to introduce everybody, and then I'm going to ask you to please answer this question when you get introduced. So the question is, do people actually own their investments, or do they just think they do? So to my left, Karen Goff, certified liability advisor and mortgage professional with CMG Home Loans. Across the table from me is Willie Blazer, founder and, I'm sorry, you need to answer the question. Back up. Yeah. Back up the horse.
Well, I guess I would say it depends on what their investment is as far as whether or not they own it. But for sure, I think that there's probably an awful lot of things that people think they own that they don't actually own.
Okay. Across the table from me is Willie Blazer, founder and CEO of Willie's Distillery out of Ennis, Montana. How would you answer that question, Willie?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if we own really a whole lot. I mean, you do, you think you do, but there's just a lot of things that could happen, to where you don't own it, And I think you see that especially as you gain wealth or whatever, there's a lot of people coming at you trying to get a piece of that pie or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, if you've got like some gold bars or something, okay, maybe you own that. But yeah, I'm always thinking, because the heavy regulated industry and everything that I'm involved in. And at the end of the day, yeah, my name's on the building, but the ATF, the federal government, the state,
yeah,
I mean, they can shut down my operation in a heartbeat. Anything you can have, your property, assets, everything can be seized overnight. Whether it's something that you did or something you didn't, or it's reported that you were. I mean, it's not like communist China type, but you might think you own stuff, but you probably don't.
Well, we just touched on that in the first episode about the prohibition, when the distillers basically just overnight
thought they owned all those barrels
of, and all of a sudden they didn't. Their assets that were sitting there in their warehouses became liabilities. You were going to say something?
Nope.
Okay. Adam Wright, owner, founder, Pulse Marketing out of Livingston, Montana. We teased in the first episode. We're going to tease again in the second episode, a promo for new community members coming up in the third part of the series. So just throwing that teaser out there. But what else? You shared a little bit about Pulse Marketing, just kind of skimmed the surface in the first episode. What else would you like to share about Pulse Marketing that you'd like people to know about?
Oh, well, I think, the term when people say, what do you do? Swag seems to be like the catch-all term. And sometimes that makes me shudder a little bit. Anybody can put anything, a logo on anything, but I think the way Pulse Marketing does it is try and put a little thought into it. Why that thing that you're tangibly touching and perhaps even owning in your hand might create the attachment to what the logo's on it. So that's kind of the view I've always had of promotional products and apparel and ad specialties. And
is it true ownership of that swag, or is it conditional? Is it conditional use?
Well, you called me the owner of the company before, and I was like, "Am I?"
Are you not?
I should probably think about that.
I don't own the company; the business owns me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think to that end, we do own. My answer to that question was we do own the small stuff.
Right.
And anything above that, we might think we own it, and we would be very shocked at how quickly we don't.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think to your point, Willie, was there's, when you take into consideration control, access, and ownership, I think those are three very
Distinct, often distinct.
well, but very shades of gray terms
Right.
when it comes to our financial lives. So I think you're spot on when you said what you said.
Well, I always think it's kind of funny. People are always, somebody that's a business owner, a small business owner, a big business owner, whatever. They're like, oh, you got into this, isn't it great to be your own boss? And, you probably don't work well. You probably never worked well underneath other bosses. Like, no, it's like every job, every boss I ever had would hire me back. And they've told me that. Maybe now, because I'm getting a little bit older, I can't shoot, move, and communicate like I used to or whatever. But no, that wasn't why I started my own business, is because I didn't like my bosses, or I wanted to do my own thing and I thought I was smarter. But, nobody's really their own boss. Everybody answers to someone.
Right.
You answer to your family, your wife, your kids. You answer to maybe your shareholders. You answer to the customer, the client. You answer to the government. Everybody's got a boss.
When a business is never going to stay in business for
Right.
very long if they don't answer to their customer, for sure.
Yeah,
On some level.
100%.
You own the pride you have in
Right.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that might be about
That's
it.
about where it ends. Yeah.
Because I'm excited about about your introduction in the third episode, I want to make sure I don't forget to throw this out there and ask this. If somebody were interested in connecting with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Do you have a pulse.com is my website.
That's great.
Do you have a pulse?
Do you have a pulse?
That's cool.
Yeah, the idea always being like, if your business or your marketing ideas are flatlining, to continue the metaphor, then come to Pulse Marketing and we'll put you back on the. But yeah, Pulse. Do you have a pulse.com is my website. Pulse MKTG is my Instagram. But I will say that my website is basically a contact me form, because like I mentioned, you can Google search and find any product you want. There's no catalog on my website. That would be redundant, but you can get in touch with me and use my expertise through that platform.
So you'd say that because you're in the swag business, but ultimately when somebody makes a decision to work with Pulse Marketing versus a different, like a competitor, what they're really doing is they're agreeing to work with you.
They're working with me.
That's essentially that's the deal. Mm-hmm. It's about, do you want the relationship with Adam to get what you need from a swag standpoint versus some big blob of a company, marketing company that you don't really have that connection or relationship with.
Absolutely. Start to finish.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, relationships are huge, for sure.
That's the reason I do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that about every job or, industry that I've worked in. It's like the connections you make, the interactions you get to have with people. That's what gets. Product is one thing, making money is one thing, but the actual interaction, human interaction, and establishing relationships, giving people a product that's quality that they appreciate as much as the effort you put into it. I mean, that's what the sun rises on.
Yeah, 100%. And we've got a lot of vendors in our arena, different people that we work with, and sometimes you can get something cheaper or faster or maybe better quality, but hey, we like these people, and they're local and we're going to support them, so that goes relationships go a long way.
Yeah. Well, I want to real quick on that, actually shifting gears back to you, Willie, as also a business owner, Willie's Distillery out of Venice. I wanted to just mention that the promoter products for the second quarter of 2026 is the Cattle Dog Whiskey, the Green Truck Gin, and the Snowcrest Huckleberry Vodka. I wanted to actually highlight the Huckleberry Vodka this time because it got kind of left out in the first episode. But the write-up for the product on your website is, I'm going to see if I can do this without my glasses. Snowcrest Huckleberry Vodka pays tribute to a wild and remote mountain range in southwest Montana, where the Yeti spends his autumn days handpicking the very best huckleberries.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. People are actually going to ask, are Yetis in Montana? This smooth huckleberry flavored vodka is made with pure Montana water and is almost as unbelievable as the Yeti. Well, there you go.
You gotta, prove us wrong that there's no Yetis, They're there.
That huckleberry show up every morning and you're like, the Yeti must have dropped them off.
There's like a mating pair too, so I think they're going to continue.
come to Montana to pick the huckleberries. We can't guarantee you'll run into a Yeti, but we can pretty much guarantee you're going to run into a bear.
Yeah, they're kind of like snowshoe hares. They kind of blend in and change with the season. But yeah, come to the 4th of July parade in Ennis, and you'll definitely see one of the Yetis.
The Yetis.
Yeah.
See, is that when he comes out?
Yeah, it's all year. You can spot a Yeti here and there, but
People can actually see the Yeti on your website, can't they?
yeah.
Yeah. Anybody wants to go to williesdistillery.com and check out the Yeti in real.
Yeah, and I think like the actual there's this book, World War II book, and I won't go into the whole details, but it's talking about the group of men that survived like a gulag or Russian prison camp and crossed all through Russia and Mongolia and then the Himalayan range. And
That was a great
they're
book.
some of the last people that they don't have proof, they don't have a photo or DNA of the Yeti, but that was actually one of the last, like they think it's pretty true, Yeti sightings, and it was like a family of Yetis, like in the Himalayas, But who knows? I mean, those dudes were on the run for many miles. Maybe they had some mushrooms, But
Oh, it's a great book.
yeah, it was a great book.
What book is it?
I'd have to find out for you. My dad, I got it from my dad and then ended up reading it, but because he's Polish and one of the prisoners of war was
100%.
Polish. Yeah, and so it was their trek across.
Cool.
But if you Google the thing, I mean, it was true story,
It
fascinating.
might be long walk or something like that.
All right.
Yeah, it was
Great
great.
book.
You'll like it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's you had me at.
Yeah.
You had me before you got to the Yeti part.
Yeah.
Oh, they had to escape and run across a whole continent of things. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, all on foot.
So shifting gears into the wealth principle around the illusion of ownership. So when someone participates in a market-based investment, what do they think they own, and structurally, what do they actually own? So I was just kind of curious to have a conversation around sort of really just kind of diving a little bit deeper into not so much what the actual belief is of people that what they have, but how it's structured, what it actually is. From your own experience standpoint, do you have any insight into that?
About what I thought I owned versus what I actually own.
Structurally, how
Yeah.
it's actually when you invest in a market-based, when you make a market-based investment, like what the actual chain of custody is and what actually happens, like in that transaction.
I would say I've learned that in the last maybe 5 or 6 years. That's when because the story that I learned, from my parents and my grandparents is you bought stock in something. Mm-hmm. Here it is, the actual paperwork of it.
Paper stock.
And I thought that I was also doing that. We just digitized the system, and I didn't need the actual paper in the safe deposit box. It was just I was doing the same thing that it was digital. And so it was not that long ago before I realized that is not at all the case.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and even just thinking about like Social Security and a lot of that stuff. I mean, been hearing that for years. Hey, when you get to retirement age, it's probably not going to be there for you. That's probably been said. We'll see if it that sort of thing continues, but stuff can dry up.
Yeah. Well,
You might think you own it, but you don't.
Right. Well, and stocks are interesting because now that is it. They changed it that you don't actually own the stock.
You become a beneficial owner, or you have a security entitlement to the stock. So you have a claim on the stock, but you're no longer the owner of the stock. When it goes into the intermediary, your relationship is not with your own money, with the assets that you put into that investment. It's actually your relationship shifts legally to the relationship with the intermediary, and they take ownership of the stock. But the problem is that once the intermediary gets his hands on it, then it goes up. It's like a vacuum noise up to the top of the food chain, and before you know it, your monies are sitting in a congealed pool of assets at a global level through a depository trust clearing corporation, which is all fine and good because they did that for a reason. When they went from paper stock to digital, that was to make that system more efficient and make it actually work. But it's also comes with a whole mess of potential
Because
problems.
you don't actually own the stock.
You don't own it. So if the system's never stressed, you can get by without even ever knowing that you were ever at jeopardy from an ownership or from a control standpoint. The problem would occur if the system became stressed, and now all of a sudden you're in a daisy chain of ownership to where you're the last of you. Now you find yourself at the bottom of the totem pole, and your payout comes after everybody else above you.
You know, an interesting thing on that, like, okay, so none of us, like, the percentage of people who actually just got, like, that I used to, when I bought a stock, owned the stock, and now I just am kind of participating in this thing. You brought up gold. And obviously, if I have my gold bars, I own it. It's in my possession, and I have it, right? So even though, yes, we've learned from the 40s that the government could still confiscate it, technically I own it, so it's going to be really hard. I'd be very curious because most people who own gold now don't actually have the physical gold. They again have a certificate. Right. So what is their contract? Do they actually own X amount of gold bars that are just sitting in somebody else's depository? Or do they just have a certificate that I'm entitled to this much gold?
That you own this gold.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah. You don't own it. You don't physically have it.
Well, and I think just, kind of on topic, but a little bit off topic, I read something and, it's so hard to, believe what's true and everything else, that's out there. But there was something about Fort Knox. We've always heard about, all the gold in Fort Knox. And apparently there might not be that much gold there or nothing or maybe, who knows? That's
the mythology of your I love my dad, but we got the whole family together on New Year's, and my brother and my dad started railing against crypto. And my brother and I are not like advocates. We're not, totally down this route.
You got to believe in it to a degree.
And there
was going to happen at some point.
It is in the understanding of that, but when my dad was like, I'm never investing in any of that, and I'm sticking with what's real.
Right.
Well, what exactly is that?
Real?
You think you're invested in gold, exactly. But do you have it? You don't. So it's just as magical in the ether as anything else we're talking about.
Right.
It's just like in World War II, the Nazis printed, before we had all this cool stuff that you could digitally scan and prove that something was counterfeit. The Nazis printed $500 million worth of pounds, for Britain and the UK, and flooded their market, and to cause a financial disruption, to try to win the war that way.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yep. I didn't know that actually, but no question in my mind, is that true?
It's paper, backed by gold, maybe.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of now, but people pushing like the gold-backed IRAs, right? But the key thing is, again, this goes back to the ownership, access, and control, quirkiness. You have to be really careful about how those three terms are applied. The thing about gold-backed IRAs is you have to look at the legal nature of how that's structured, even though that IRA is backed by something other than market-based investments.
How many people are between you and the gold?
Well, contractually, it's still a different arrangement. Right. You have to ask yourself the appropriate questions. It's all about asking the right questions, right? And understanding what you truly have from an ownership and control standpoint. But it's so difficult for people to really get clear and know what's true, like you were saying, Willie, about what do we actually have, like what's ours and what's somebody else's, and you don't really know, unfortunately, until it's too late, until after when you actually need it, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, what do you mean I can't have that?
Like in 2020, I had like 40 rolls of toilet paper. And all of a sudden, I had like 20. Like, it's amazing how those things grew legs. And then I was down to like 2, and I had to like get because I was hiding it, and I had to get like very tricky, at the distillery, hiding it from employees or whoever else.
Oh, wow.
Because I don't care. I don't need toilet paper,
They had sticky fingers.
Other people do, yeah.
Da-dum-bum.
So you thought you owned it, but you don't.
But it was funny too, because also toilet paper became a precious commodity, and all of a sudden, if you happened to own a few rolls, you could sell them for a whole lot of money.
People were hoarding it. I mean, that was ridiculous, but it was a good eye opener, to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, in another conversation show, I really want to get into, because you brought up a couple times about having gold, physical possession of gold, and you're absolutely correct. Like, if you can't hold it in your hands, then you have to ask the question: do I really own it, or do I have access to it? But that comes with its own challenges too, because while you would be happy to take it, somebody walks into your tasting room with a bar of gold and says, I would like to buy some liquor. You'll be like, sure, I'll take that bar of gold. Right.
Yeah.
But then they want change.
But say
It's like $1,000 an ounce right now or whatever. Yeah.
Transactionally, that presents its own challenges and problems too. So,
Yeah.
you know, what is the answer? What is the solution? I mean, I don't know. That's, you know, it's kind of a rhetorical question, but they're all very interesting conversations. I think the premise of today's show and what we're talking about now with tying back into the concept of redundancy is just trying to help open people's eyes to understand that maybe it's not the best idea to put all of your eggs in one basket with something that you think that you own and control, only to come to find out that you actually don't, because you can find yourself in a really bad situation really fast. Like the distillers in Prohibition, to bring it up one more time, when all of a sudden the government came in and said, all of those barrels in your warehouse, they're ours now.
Maybe the Walmart example. I've had, a couple business mentors or whatever, not to bash Walmart, everybody does, but I'm not here to bash their success. At some point they started off as a small business and created a pretty awesome thing.
Yep.
For their family and a lot of generations to come. But like as a small business, potentially one of the worst things you can do is like get that 100% all in like Walmart contract. Like, oh, we're going to crush it. Not that you can do whiskey there, but let's say it's you make this pair of socks and you got this Walmart contract and you just start infusing money and we got this Walmart contract. At some point they're going to cut you. They're like, hey, we were paying you, $10 for these socks. Now we're going to pay you $8. Now we're going to pay you $6. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to pay you $5. Right. And you had everything was banked on this, so you just got to have multiple avenues of revenue.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, Willie, is we've gotten to know you more over the months that we've done shows together. Is one of the things I really appreciate is, and have come to understand, because I'm going to admit it, that I was even a little guilty of this a little bit earlier in our relationship, where I wanted to sort of see you with your distillery like in a certain light, because I really believed in what you've built, and I really believe that people would come to you for that and that alone. But what I've come to appreciate about you is when you look at the 30 plus people behind you that are making everything
100%.
Work behind you, and you go, look, it's not about some ideal of what I think I want it to be. It's about what do I need to do in order to help these people all feed their families.
100%. Yeah.
And that brings back or ties back in that concept of redundancy of like you're never going to discount an opportunity to build more redundancy into your business, because that's where your priority is taking care of those people behind you. And that's really, I think, what I've come to appreciate foremost about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So if nothing changes, is it possible someone could spend their entire life building wealth only to discover that they actually didn't have ownership over it in the first place? And like we already mentioned, I mean, I think you guys probably would all agree with that, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I already sort of touched on this, but Karen and I have had multiple conversations in the past about, I used to rail on the whole retirement system thing, retirement planning, retirement. But I realized, that I was wrong, right? Like there's nothing wrong with retirement. I just really I found when I dug deeper into exploring my bad attitude about it was I had a problem with the retirement system.
Right.
And so from a retirement planning standpoint, I do feel like that it concerns me, because if it works well, people can spend their 30 to 40 years of their working life building a retirement and actually retire, have a very successful retirement, and they'll look at someone like me and go, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I love retirement. Retirement's great. It's all good. The system works. Yeah. You're lucky. It did work.
Yeah.
Good for you. And I mean that. Good for you. Again, the problem comes into play is I think people need to be a little bit more, again, going back to the initial question in the other episode, is it a defensive, I can't remember the question, was it a defensive strategy or an offensive or offensive strategy for advantage? And I think that people need to just make sure that they build some redundancy in their life.
Well, one of the things that I always think that is fascinating is when you look at people, when I work with people, I just want them to actually look at their life. And it's amazing how few people actually self-examine. How many people even know what they're doing? They're just doing what they're told to do. So they haven't bothered to think about where they're putting their money because they were told to, and that's just what I'm going to do. Down to like things, people, the amount of keeping up with the Joneses that they don't even know, they don't actually want to do. They're just doing because they think they're supposed to. And it's weird to me the number of times that like people who love their jobs retire because they were told they were supposed to retire at a certain age.
Right.
Or like somebody who definitely was not set up and then was freaking out because she did not have the money. But I'm like, well, why did you retire? Was it bad health or something? And I'm waiting for this really terrible story. And she's like, well, I was 65, so of course I was going to retire. And I'm like, but none of you aren't actually okay to do so. Like that doesn't make sense.
I don't know if anybody truly retires. Even your retirement, I mean, you've got to manage that money,
right?
That budget, and
yeah. And if you don't have it, it doesn't mean that you just because you're told you were supposed to retire.
I love that idea.
Right. Yeah.
Or you worked for Enron.
Yeah.
You didn't own that pension either.
Right.
I have a question. Where do you guys stand on this? So the other thing, I think one of the things that when I would rail on the whole retirement concept was that I feel like people spend their whole lives sort of becoming the best version of themselves. Over decades, you build experience, you build wisdom, you build talent, you build all of these things that makes you like, as an American, sort of exceptional. And then you get to that point where you really have the ability to take all of that.
You have your stuff get together.
Yeah, you finally like are at the pinnacle of your ability to give back into society from a productive standpoint. And you cash out and you're like, I'm going golfing. And so you always have like sort of like a loss of that high-end talent that's being replaced by the rebuilding talent. So your system never really gets to fully peak from what our true potential could be from an economy standpoint. Where do you guys stand on that?
Well, I think it's cool. Like anybody that has that mindset, for one, like, hey, I want to be the best version of myself. I mean, that's a plus right there, because there's a lot of people out there that probably don't even think that way. They're just going through the motions and existing, And I don't know if anybody, really fully, reaches that potential, but that's the goal, be the best version, be the best person that you can be. And that's hard, I think in a lot of ways, but it's my initial thoughts on that.
What do you think, Adam?
That's a fascinating philosophical problem that I'm not sure that I've ever like focused directly on, but like you said, you've acquired all this knowledge and all this experience, and you can be like around to spread that to other people or be involved or teach that, that new entry. And then the goal is to disappear from that world and sort of not you're completely isolating yourself, but like you're going from a professional window of X amount of people to your golf buddies and, sitting on I don't know what people do when they're retired. I'm not planning on being able to have one of those, so I don't know what people do. But I think your network, your circle gets smaller.
Well, I think there's actually something that I just found out about that I think is so cool. There's some universities. And so one of the things when you get older is housing. Where am I going to live that I don't have all these needs? And do I want to go to this retirement community where I'm around a bunch of old people? And, we know from studies of health and stuff, the amount, it does have an impact. So transportation and housing, right? And caretaking. Well, a number of universities, I think there's 3 of them now, have created Join to the University is a retirement home where they're 100% integrated. So like one of the things is one of the universities is a big tech university. So they invite all these retired tech people to come in, and then they guest lecture. And they end up with all these relationships with the kids. That's so awesome. And like the kids love it, and the retired, they love it. I think it's beautiful. It's like everything that like ingenuity is about, of like, how do we solve this problem and that problem in a way that honestly, so I just found out about that, and I'm super excited because I'm hoping it will change to the fact that it becomes way more the norm, that you're just moving into the next chapter, which is being that mentor, which is really having
it's almost like
really
a closed loop, like a closed loop system or a regenerative system.
Yeah.
Passing on the knowledge, train the trainer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, people want to be remembered. A lot of people look at their legacy or that sort of deal, but
yeah.
Well, we'll have to have a conversation with you, Willie, someday about legacy. That's a very interesting topic, too.
Yeah.
I'm going to shut my mouth because otherwise I'm going to start going down a rabbit hole. So in the third episode, coming up next, we're going to answer the question. So if that's the system that we've been talking about, where does somebody actually start to take back control? So that's the last question we're going to answer in episode 3. So before we go there,
If you want help mapping this out, join the Treasure community or book your free 30-minute consultation. Either way, we'll help walk you through where you're exposed.
and want to remind everybody again that same principle of control, controlling the inputs and controlling outcome. That's what Willie's does every day. So be sure to go to williesdistillery.com and use the promo code TREASURE to get free shipping on 3 bottles or more of Willie's product, or 15% off all merchandise. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Now I gotta run back to Montana. I had my fun.